From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Congress is running out of time to address cattle market concerns.
And when you talk to those P&S employees, what they tell us is they have all the authorities they need. They have the ability to subpoena. They have that prosecutorial authority. What they don't have is staff.
Michelle Rook reports 2,500 pounds of butter is on display in Ohio.
It's a big undertaking this year. We're using more butter and more space than we have before.
What makes this year's sculpture so special? Flooding rains roll through the Midwest, while cotton needs a drink to go with the heat down south.
And when you just putting that heat down on that cotton, man, it's kind of like a fat boy in the candy store. He getting it in.
A closer look at conditions right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Cotton futures are back on the rise this week as prospects for the 2022 crop continue to dwindle. Now, USDA's latest crop progress report says just a third of the crop is rated good to excellent, half of what it was a year ago. Now that's down 4 percentage points compared to just last week. Breaking it down by state, in Texas, just 17% is rated good to excellent. It's just 15% in Oklahoma. Conditions, well, they're pretty spotty in different parts of the South and Mid-South as well. And here's why. The latest root zone moisture map showing that dryness through the southern plains, Nebraska, Kansas, and then into pockets across the South. Now you can see also is drying out in places like Iowa, Virginia, and along the New England coast. In Louisiana, USDA says more than 70% of the cotton is rated good to excellent. But as Carl Wiggers in This Week with Louisiana Agriculture finds, after a wet start, some dryland fields are in serious need of a drink.
Since 1977, there's been cotton on Davis Farm / Bales and Bushels LLC since 1977 up to 2017.
James Davis Jr. is the second generation of his family to grow cotton on this farm, but the markets could not support a cotton crop after 2017. That's when he moved to a mix of soybeans, corn, and milo. That's what he wanted to plant this year also, until the wet spring delayed planting his corn.
I think I'd rather have early cotton and beans than late corn.
Those spring showers kept Davis from fighting back winter weeds.
Those weeds are also competing for moisture with that young cotton season, so there's no moisture there. So where you have that weed competition, it's severely limiting the ability of that cotton plant to get established.
That competition would not be so damaging if the summer months would not have been as dry as they've been.
We've been severely dry. I planted some cotton in late May, and to date that cotton has only received around 2.5 to 3 inches of rainfall.
None of this cotton is irrigated, so every inch of rainfall matters.
The plants still have the potential to do what they need to do, but things need to happen timely on it. They get the right rains at the right time to where we can put the moisture in the bowls.
One more factor all crops are dealing with is heat. Davis says with his cotton at this size, a little bit of moisture goes a long way, and the plants can take the heat and add fruit.
The canopy has gotten to a point to where the ground is shaded, and whatever moisture it gets, it can conserve it. And when you just putting that heat down on that cotton, man, it's kind of like a fat boy in the candy store. He getting it in, and that's what the cotton is doing. It's doing what it's doing. It's making bowls and squaring and doing it all. My old daddy would be proud to see this old cotton right here. He'd be proud to see it.
This cotton does need another rain. Until that day comes, Davis is holding on to the one thing that all farmers cling to.
One thing that I do know about farmers, and most all of us farmers, is you got to pretty much have faith.
It's been the Tensas Desert up here.
In Tensas Parish, I'm Carl Wiggers for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
Now take a look at this. The St. Louis Fire Department rescuing motorists Tuesday trapped in their cars following severe flash flooding. The city shattering an all-time rainfall record for any day with nearly 9 inches falling. Now most of it fell in just 5 hours. Other parts of the state seeing between 6 and 14 inches of rainfall, including right there south of Troy. Now take a look at some of the farm fields flooded as the storm rolled through. Farmers previously facing drought are now hoping the waters recede quickly and crops survive. Many major roadways were covered in water, including I-70. Rivers rose quickly and emergency crews rushed to help. More rain is expected this week from Kansas to Virginia, keeping the flash flood risk elevated. Those big rains are going to make it awful steamy in parts of the country. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us with more on the heat. Matt.
Yeah, Clinton, that's right. We're going to have another very warm day across the middle of the country, even back towards the southwest. You can see some of these temperatures, 102 back in Phoenix, and still seeing those triple digits across parts of Texas and Oklahoma, and feeling even warmer than some of these numbers on this map because that humidity is going to be high again along parts of the Gulf Coast, even up into places like Tennessee. And if we kind of look at the jet stream here, mild air moving across the parts of the Great Lakes into the interior parts of New England, and then the heat is back on through the weekend and into next week. That ridge continues to amplify through the middle of the country, and that's going to again bring in temperatures potentially 10 to 15 degrees above normal, and that's what we're looking at right here. This excessive heat outlook for next week, showing a high, a 70% chance in that dark red area, parts of the upper Midwest and Corn Belt, that could see temperatures 10 to 15 degrees or more above normal, and a larger area, most of the eastern U.S., dealing with temperatures above normal by 10 or 15 degrees, and there is a 50% chance, a moderate chance of that to happen, and we'll continue to track it right here on Ag Day. And nothing like a summer storm to cool things off. Take a look at this picture from Matt Borgen up in Georgetown, Minnesota. He snapped a picture of storm clouds on the horizon with a good-looking field of corn below. USDA says 63% of Minnesota corn is rated good to excellent, although it's been a bit behind in maturity due to that wet start to the growing season. We'll have more on your full forecast coming up in just a bit.
All right, thanks, Matt. Following several years of heavy wildfires, the U.S. Forest Service is pledging more than $100 million to help replant trees. Now, its plan is to seed more than 1 billion trees over the next decade as part of the Infrastructure Bill's Replant Act. Officials say the reforestation drive is the largest in the U.S. since the 1930s, when billions of trees were planted under New Deal work programs. The clock is ticking on legislation in Congress designed to help level the playing field for cattle producers in a market many of them say is broken. AgDay's Michelle Rook has details.
Clinton, the House recently passed the Lower Food and Fuels Costs Act. It includes a special USDA investigator to help look into possible violations of the Packers and Stockyards Act and whether producers are being treated unfairly. However, there's divide on if this is the right approach to restoring competition in the cattle market. Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack says to ensure fairness in the market, they need more cattle market information regarding cash trades, as well as greater enforcement of the Packers and Stockyards Act. He says the addition of this position may well help USDA accomplish that goal.
One way is by supporting the notion of having an investigative arm, if you will. The other way is to bolster the staffing at Packers and Stockyards, which the president's budget includes. So a combination of those two things would strengthen our ability. In the meantime, we're going to try to strengthen the Packers and Stockyards Act.
However, NCBA is opposed to this legislation and adding a special investigator at USDA, saying the agency already has a Packers and Stockyards division and they're just understaffed and underfunded by nearly 50%.
And when you talk to those P&S employees, what they tell us is they have all the authorities they need. They have the ability to subpoena. They have that prosecutorial authority when needed, working with their partners at the Department of Justice. What they don't have is staff.
Lane says adding personnel and resources would go much farther than creating another government agency that will cloud the issue. And they look at this bill as a solution in search of a problem. However, he says time may simply run out to advance either the special investigator bill or another controversial legislative fix for the cattle market, the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act. The summer session ends in the next few weeks, and it's unlikely to be taken up in a lame duck session of Congress.
All right, thanks, Michelle. She'll be right back to take a look at markets as the bulls charge back in to start the week. And later, a record-setting sculpture at the Ohio State Fair. And of course, it's made of butter. How this creation was formed in the country.
Ag Day is brought to you by the End Zone by Farm Shop MFG, which allows you to rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's an extra semi-load added to your bottom line. Order your End Zone fan control by July 31st and receive $200 off.
Weather is back in the driver's seat this week as grains continue their double-digit climb. Michelle Rook has more in today's Look at Markets.
Well, Tuesday was a higher day in the greens. Here to visit about that, Vince Boddicker with Farmers Trading Company. Soybeans really taking a leadership role in the grains, Vince. And I know some of that was about weather, but the meal market was also pushing this market. What do you think our upside potential is?
I don't know. You got to be impressed. There was a big spike in that meal today. When you looked at the soybeans themselves, just stepping back to that for a second, November needed to get in close above that 1384. We got above it, didn't close there. I'm not sure that's a big deal, but that was, I think, the 200 period moving average. I don't have my chart handy, but I think that's a point to get above. You wonder on the meal side if it really, after the missile strikes on Saturday and two more last night in different ports, could it be that the trade is worried about, will we get the sunflowers out of Ukraine and maybe we're going to have to substitute that meal with, sunflower meal with soybean meal?
Right.
One thing I can figure out is, you and I discussed earlier, we do have maybe a little bit less hog herd, but prices are coming up on hogs in China, and I think that's got to be helpful and should make that bean crush profitable for the Chinese.
Again, soybeans kind of the price leader here. What's your upside target there, do you think?
Today was one of those days didn't get a lot, but first of all, I got to look at $14. You got to think $13.98 to $14.02 is going to be some things. If we get through that, then my next one will be $14.18 and probably $14.50.
And corn could not really get over the $6 mark, or at least close effectively. Are you disappointed with that, considering we had such a big update in wheat and in soybeans?
Somewhat, but you wonder, is it more or less that these commodities are going to take their turn and what they're going to do? But a 40-cent plus gain by the highs today over what we've seen last week, I think, is a good start. Is smart money coming back into the market, as some people believe it is, into the grains? That's a good possibility, I think, and that should help us. But we may not just go straight up. And the other part of it, I think, is corn. Most of it's pollinated, so we're maybe going to put that in the back burner, even though we still need some rain to fill those out.
All right, thanks for joining us. Vince Boddicker with Farmers Trading Company. Our full analysis at agweb.com. More AgDay coming up.
AgDay is brought to you by MetLife Investment Management's Agricultural Finance Group. MetLife Investment Management is positioned to help you grow your business with a competitive farm, ranch, and agribusiness loan. To learn more, visit investments.metlife.com/agriculture.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here, taking a look at the jet stream. And Matt, really, this is what's kind of causing some of those heavy rains right around St. Louis.
Yeah, jet stream dragging some of those stalled out fronts across the area, really dragging all that precipitation and kind of also being the boundary between some cooler and drier air to the north and warmer, more humid air down to the south as well. And you can see the cooler air up in places like Minnesota, up toward Bismarck. It's not going to hang around too long, though. We are going to be watching this kind of a little area of some cooler air kind of drift off towards the east, and that's going to continue as we head through the end of this week. But notice the heat, the humidity sticking around down the south and up the Pacific coast as well. We're going to be looking at a ridge starting to build there in the west, but then sliding east into the center of the country as we head through the weekend and into next week. This is when that heat's really going to come back right through the middle of the country, and we were talking about the excessive heat possible, parts of the Corn Belt, parts of the upper Midwest. That's going to be possible as we head towards the middle of next week, and this is why that ridge slowly moving eastward right up into the center of the country, and we'll continue to keep an eye on that. But for this afternoon, still looking at very hot and humid conditions across parts of Texas and Oklahoma. Still warm, places that saw a lot of rain, parts of Missouri there down towards southern Illinois and Indiana, even parts of Kentucky. Very warm after all that rain fell the other day, and now we've got more of the kind of cooler conditions farther to the north. So kind of that border there between cooler air and warmer air to the south. That's going to be the case as we head into tomorrow as well. Still warm and humid across most of the Gulf Coast states, but here's a look at the temperatures tomorrow afternoon. 107 toward Wilmington, down toward Memphis, New Orleans, topping out close to 100 degrees as well. So it stays very warm, not only in the south, but also all the way up the west coast as that ridge starts to build its way on in. And here's a look at the feels like temperatures. You add in the humidity to places in the east, and it is going to feel over 100 degrees for most of the time. And still, kind of that border between cooler air to the north, warmer air to the south, chance for a few stronger storms there, all the way from Missouri off to the east coast as well. And that's associated with this kind of stalled out front right here, continuing to bring those training showers and thunderstorms to the east. Meanwhile, a couple of cold fronts moving through the upper Midwest. That will cause some showers and thunderstorms there. None of that should be severe though. And then more pop-up showers and storms towards the west coast. All that will add up eventually, but the heaviest of the rain occurring from St. Louis off to the east again as we head through the end of this week, and we'll continue to track that right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Charleston, West Virginia, heavy rain and thunderstorms, likely a high near 84 degrees. 92 in Wichita, Kansas, with showers and thunderstorms possible. And Woodland, California, sunny and hot, a high near 99.
Pork exporters are hoping things get back to normal after protesters forced a slowdown at a major California port. The Port of Oakland says its marine terminals are open and operating normally. It follows several days of disruptions by truck drivers protesting a new California gig worker law. Now, the drivers have moved to free speech zones to continue their demonstrations. The U.S. Meat Export Federation says the Oakland port is a major hub for shipping pork and beef to Asia. And USDA is increasing the amount of funding available for the spot market hog pandemic program. They expect to issue approximately $63 million in pandemic assistance payments to hog producers starting this week. The program assists eligible producers who sold hogs through a spot market sale from April 16th of 2020 through September 1st of 2020. Producers will receive $54 per head for hogs eligible, not to exceed 10,000 head. Now, they say everything is better with butter. Artists are testing that theory with their butter than ever display at the Ohio State Fair. We'll get a look at a record-breaking butter cow sculpture next.
Registration is open for the 2022 Pro Farmer Crop Tour. Join our team as we gain insight on the 2022 growing season in person or online. Visit profarmercroptour.com/register to select the stop nearest you.
The last 2 years, Ohio State Fair fans have missed the beloved butter cow and her calf. Well, this year, the American Dairy Association Mideast churned out its largest display ever. Barb Consiglio reports on this fair favorite.
The Ohio State Fair is back, and so is the beloved butter cow. And as fairgoers enjoy the festivities, this year's butter display serves as a tribute to where it all began, with Ohio's farm families and their contributions to our communities.
For many people, the fair is about the midway, the rides, the games, and so it's important that we remind folks that the roots of the fair are about agriculture, bringing farmers together, allowing kids to show their animals, and educate others about agriculture, which is Ohio's #1 industry.
The butter display features kids and the animals they've raised to show at the fair. It's the first time ever that the famous butter cow and calf are joined by other livestock, including a lamb, a chicken, and a pig. Together, the young exhibitors and their animals make up the largest display ever, created with more than 2,500 pounds of butter.
It's a big undertaking this year. We're using more butter and more space than we have before.
As a member of a farm family in Botkins, Ohio, it's a theme that is close to Madeline Topp's heart.
So all of these are our Ohio State Fair banners that we've won over the years.
Just like the fair, the Topp's family roots are grounded in agriculture and the tradition of showing their animals at the fair each year.
My father and his brothers have actually been showing ever since they were little, and then my grandpa and my grandma actually showed when they were little too. So it's been going on for generations.
To honor the hard work and dedication of those like the Topps, technical sculptors spent hundreds of hours layering butter onto wooden and steel frames before chiseling the fine details in a 46-degree cooler. The display is presented by the American Dairy Association Mideast and is expected to attract more than 500,000 fairgoers.
We're excited to be back in butter. We're bigger than we've ever been, and looking forward to having families come to the fair, experience all that it has to offer, and see the butter cow.
In Columbus, this is Barb Consiglio reporting.
All right, thanks, Barb. Now, the display is open daily through August 7th. And that's all the time we have this morning. I'm sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day. Farm Country.